Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video we are going to continue our look at painting the spinefish from Elathain Soul Raiders. It's a mouthful to say. So this is part 2. We are going to finish off this model. To get us started, we're going to use Skaven Blight Dinge. This is going to be for the wood planks, the shipwreck wreckage thing. We're going to use a drop of Lamian Medium just to help thin it out. Really, this is, it's not terribly important. We could just as easily have used water to thin the color down, but I decided on medium because why not? But if you're just simply base coating and what have you, using water is perfectly fine as well. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. We're just moving around. We are going to have to apply more than one coat because we are working with the paint in a thinned out consistency, but that means that we can maintain better control of the color. And of course, if we ever make little boo-boos and anything like that, it is a little bit easier to clean up, cover up, and what have you, correct the situation as it were. And so again, it's pretty straightforward. Just be mindful of where, some of these little plank details are hiding and, things like that. And, so we'll slap another coat on there and then we will move on. This is after the second coat. Storm Vermin Fur is next. We're going to use a little bit of medium here just to thin it down again. Now, with this color, we are going to begin our highlighting process. Now, when we are highlighting, I'm basically just going to start drawing in the highlights of the little planks. Now, some of the planks have some sculpted, they're very shallow sculpted details, but there are sculpted details there to follow the wood grain, as it were. I had considered applying like a fairly strict kind of highly detailed type of, highlighting scheme of doing all the little wood grain and all that, but then decided against it because, wasn't entirely necessary, and this guy's kind of a, not a main character type piece within the warband, so I decided against it. So on the big portions of the planks, I basically do like an edge highlight, and then I'll draw like a little line in between there, and it's not the whole length of the details, although those curved planks, I do follow most of that. We're going to jump over to some Ushabti bone. We're going to throw that into the rest of that, Storm Vermin. We're going to throw a drop of medium in there just to thin it out. The ratio is probably closer to a 1-to-1, but it actually probably would have been better to go more Storm Vermin rather than Ushabti. I also hit some of the little barnacles with this color as well. I wanted a kind of, not warmer, but I didn't want it to feel entirely like a stone cold kind of gray. I actually wanted a bit of warmth in this, and I had considered other routes to go with as far as achieving this, dingy barnacle covered kind of shipwreck wood, basically throwing like in some greens, like using green wash like Elathain camo shade, or something along those, or even in the contrasts. There was many options, and I decided against it once it was all said and done, because basically I'm just finishing off some of these edge highlights. I'm allowing more color to build up on high points, going around picking out the little barnacles. I'm not too concerned about basically like what color the barnacles should be or anything like that. As a quick look around, I mean, most of the barnacles are pretty kind of dark anyway. They're basically just like little clams, and I don't know what the little barnacles are that have like the hole in them. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. What am I, a marine biologist here? And so once we're done with all those highlights, we're going to jump over to some Zameshi Desert. Slap a little onto the palette. No thinners needed, just a little generous amount of water in the bristles. And basically we are going to base coat the entirety of the sand detail on the base. And I was painting this essentially how I intend to do the rest of my Ideneth Deepkin, as I do want these models to fit within the army. I want there to be some consistency of, of the color themes across the army and such. So that's really just kind of where I'm at as far as doing the base. Now, if you have an idea for, what color you want to use on the base, by all means, if you want to use a technical, I don't know if a technical is really necessary in this instance, because there is a sculpted detail there, which has texture, and, I don't know if it's really necessary that you would want to use a technical or anything like that. Yeah, there is that little bit between the planks there. I did finish that. Balasar Gold is next. Again, no thinners, just the dampness of the brush to thin the color out, and I begin base coating the little Voss or whatever it is on the buried in the sand. I had considered again doing something along the lines of like making it kind of oxidized and what have you, but gold actually doesn't oxidize, so Agrax Earthshade is next. This is going to be applied over the entirety of the base, excluding the wood, of course. Although anywhere where I do make contact with the wood, I'm not too worried about it, as it does help the unevenness and, just kind of creating texture and variation in tone and all these wonderful things that give visual interest to these pieces. I do make sure I hit the gold, and I try to make sure that I get the nice dark color around the little pebbles and such on the base. We're going to jump back over to Ushabti Bone. We're going to grab a small dry brush, slap a little bit of Ushabti Bone onto my palette, and basically dunk my dry brush in. Make sure I have removed a great deal of the paint from the bristles, and very gently begin moving the brush across the surface. As any dry brushing, anybody who's instructed you on how to dry brush, I'm sure you're going to be fine. If I hit the gold or anything like that, I'm not too worried about that. If I hit any of the planks, I'm not too worried about that, because again, we used the Ushabti Bone in part of the highlights, so anywhere that we might have nicked onto the wood, it doesn't really become apparent. Gannett Gold is next. No thinners, just the dampness of the brush, and basically we're just going to edge highlight the Voss, as it were. So just kind of catching some of those raised edges, the little lip and the handles of the Voss. Again, I was considering, going into further depth, color depth, as far as, creating the impression of, this Voss being, buried in sand and, buried treasure kind of thing. We're going to jump over to Turbo Dork, Curacao. Curacao? Just a little bit onto the palette. Heavy, generous amount of water. We're going to thin this color down into a glaze. And yes, we're going to have some fun here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to glaze this metallic paint over where we had applied the Aethermatic Blue in part 1. And this is going to be really fun because we're going to get that nice shiny, glittery, fish quality that we all know and love of fish. Now, the big thing to bear in mind here is because we have so much water added to our glaze that you do really have to be mindful of the pooling. And there's one little spot where the pooling did occur and I missed it, and it does become apparent later on, but yeah, kudos to anybody who can spot it. Basically, you want to, when you're working with it in this fashion, you want to draw it out. Just use it like a thin glaze. Do not allow it to pool. You're not looking for it to pool up anywhere too heavily. You just want to get a little bit of that colored metallic flake on that surface to, bring some depth. And of course, this is also an opportunity to also help with some of those color transitions, because the way the magenta and the blue tone kind of merge together, it can look a little bit abrupt. Sakura is next from Turbo Dork. This is a nice little pink metallic. I'm going to slap a little bit onto my palette, grab a generous amount of water, break this down into a glaze, and then we basically apply this. Now I'm going to apply this only to the darker areas of the fish, the body, and of course the magenta in the fins and such. So I don't hit this over the entirety of the body of the fish. And it really is just kind of a little bit on the spines. It's really not a lot, again, because this is thinned out, so a lot of the undercolor will show through. Here you can see my brush stroke. I'm drawing downwards from the middle point where it's kind of white still, and drawing down towards the main body. And again, anywhere where it pools up, I draw that excess out, because I'm not looking for it to pool up and be this pink metallic there. I'm just looking for that surface change. And of course, it does have a glittery look to it, only in really kind of like direct light. Once you get this out of direct light, the colors shine right through. You don't even see the metallic, which is actually kind of hilarious, but it's kind of the fun part of doing this. And it's a great way to bring a little bit of life and a little bit of sparkle into the models. And when we're dealing with models, especially if they're going to be like game pieces and stuff like that, like why not go for something that basically the ambient light in a room will play across its surface and really bring out the attention to detail and the sculpting of the actual figure rather than trying to, emulate something that isn't really there. Steel Legion Drab is next. We're going to slap a little onto the palette, and we're going to use our Shade Wash brush because it's a nice good thickness for doing this portion of the paint job, which is basically I'm just going to paint the rim. So we're nearing the completion of this model, and here you're going to notice that some of the primer does show through. I basically go back over this with a second layer really fast. Nothing too fancy. It's just, being careful and just doing that paint rim. You can see that's nice and solid now. And again, you can see in the direct light, the metallic is very apparent. Ceramite White is next. Slap a little onto the palette. We don't need very much. Very carefully, I'm going to dot the eyes. I'm going to try and catch the entirety of the eyeball. Basically just move forward a little bit here because I don't show the other eyeball, but it's the same thing. And we're going to jump over to some golden high flow fluorescent pink. Just a very tiny amount onto the palette. And with this, we are basically going to paint in the entirety of the eye. Now, I do actually apply a little too much. It falls into the recesses and actually hit a little bit of the fish body itself, the head. So I do come back in with some Volupus pink and basically frame the eye a little bit better and clear up some of the little boo-boo I make. But otherwise, that is it. I just leave that fluorescent pink to shine, and it gives me a nice glowy eyeball to the fish, gives us a nice little bit of attention. And there it is. That is the Spinefin from Elathain Soul Raiders. I like this model, and I'm really excited to jump over to the next little character from this box set, which is, of course, the crab. So stay tuned for that one. Big thank you to my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. You'll be taken off to a magical website called Patreon, where there are various tiers of support, and click whatever makes sense to you. And a huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.